First off, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to our power, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakakadash. Double honors to Great Millstone and the elders and apostles, and salutation to all the sincere brothers out there pushing the truth, and those sincere sisters who are listening and learning. This lesson is entitled, Lions of Judah Will Rise Again. This lesson is going to quickly cover the rise of Israel when they were delivered out of Egypt, when they entered into that covenant with Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls God, to Israel's demise when they forsook Yahweh and his covenant. Then we're going to cover the prophecy which states that Yahweh Shai would come to deliver the Israelites. The prophecy states that Yahweh Shai will deliver, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. It states that he will deliver his people, the Israelites. Who are the Israelites? The Israelites are the so-called Negro Americans, the so-called Latin Americans, the so-called, Native Americans, so-called Mexicans, and scattered abroad, okay? Because according to the rise and their fall, that fall dealt with them being scattered to the four corners of the earth. So with that being said, let's quickly go over this. This is Numbers chapter 23, verse 22. And it's going to go over a prophet speaking to a king, and this prophet telling this king that, hey, Israel is going to be a powerful, mighty nation. They're going to rise to great power. And there is nothing that can stop this from happening. And it just goes to show that Israel was above all nations when they were delivered out of Egypt, when they enter into that covenant with the Most High as well. It says, Yahweh brought them out of Egypt. He hath, as it were, the strength of an unicorn. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, what hath Yahweh wrought? So the prophet is saying, what's happening now is going to put all other nations, all other peoples on notice that, hey, Yahweh has established Israel to be a great nation and greatly to be feared among all nations. It says, behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion and lift up himself as a young lion. He shall not lay down until he eat of the prey and drink the blood of the slain. And did not Israel go out conquering all heathen nations? Did not the Most High tell them, any nation who you go up to and say peace to, and they do not accept it, you destroy them? And this is exactly how Israel came to power, through Yahweh establishing them, and by them practically conquering all nations, okay? Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 21. Now we're going to transition from the rise to when they entered into the covenants. They had the great kingdom set up. They were in the promised land, to their demise, okay? It says, notwithstanding the children rebelled against me, they walked not in my statutes, neither kept my judgments to do them, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. They polluted my Sabbath. Then I said, I would pour out my fury upon them to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. Nevertheless, I withdrew mine hand and wrought for my namesake that it should not be polluted in the sight of the heathens, in whose sight I brought them forth. So the Most High is saying, you know what? I established them, but now I'm about to bring forth a judgment. Now I'm about to take my hand from them. I'm about to do the opposite. It says, I lifted up mine hand upon them also in the wilderness, that I should scatter them among the heathen and disperse them through the countries, because they had not executed my judgments, but had despised my statutes and polluted my Sabbath, and their eyes were after their father idols. So we're going from the rise to their fall. They had the promised land. They had everything. They had the statutes and the covenants, the blessings and cursings, and they did not obey the Most High. So what did he do? He said he will scatter them among the heathen. Who are heathens? Heathens are considered anybody who are not Israelites. Matthew chapter 1 verse 21 states, and he shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Yahweh Shai, for he shall save his people from their sin. Now we're transitioning from their fall to being scattered to the four corners of the earth to now they're them being risen. But by what? By who? Yahushai. It says, and she shall bring forth a son, who the word ignorantly calls Jesus, and thou shalt call his name Yahushai, for he shall save his people from their sins. So Yahushai, as we continue to move forward, we're going to see that he was raised and he was raised and born to give deliverance to Israel. Why? Because they disobeyed the Most High. Why? Because the Most High kicked them off the promised land. He scattered them to the four corners of the earth, but now he wants to redeem them. Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, out of Yahushai, aka Jesus' mouth. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is Yahushai speaking. He's saying that he came to deliver Israel. What did Israel need to do? Need to be delivered from? They needed to be delivered from under the strictnesses of the law. They needed to receive grace so that when they did go off from not obeying the law, they could then have a mediator to deliver them, because Israel is the only nation under the law, statutes, and commandments, the covenant. There's no other nation under the covenant of blessing and cursing, life or death. The 10 commandments were not given to all nations. It was only given to Israelites. Matthew chapter 10, verse 5, it says, these 12 Yahushai sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, the heathens, the strangers. It says, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Yahushua came to preach the kingdom and the gospel to the Israelites. Revelation going into once again that who is going to deliver Israel. Revelation chapter 5, verse 5. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loosen the 7 seals thereof. The Lion of Judah, a descendant from Israel, Yahushai. Yahushai is an Israelite. It said in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21, it says, and she shall bring forth a son, thou shalt call his name Yahushai, for he shall deliver his people from their sins. Yahushua is an Israelite. Who are Israelites? We, the so-called Negro Americans, the so-called Native Americans, the so-called Indians and such on, and scattered abroad. Yahushua came to deliver us. We are his people because we are the Israelites. It says, Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 11, once again, going into the deliverance and the rise of Israel being going to happen again. It says, Ezekiel 34, verse 11, for thus saith Yahweh, thy power, behold, even I will both search my sheep and seek them out, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered. So will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Yahweh did not forsake Israel. He did not forsake Israel after he scattered them and kicked them off the promised land. No, he sent his only begotten son to deliver us. So much that in that dark and cloudy day, which we're going to go into, he's actually going to begin to deliver us out of that dark and cloudy day. Not all nations, not all people, but only Israelites. Joel chapter 2, verse 1 states, blow ye the trumpet, and this is prophecy, this is the end times. Blow ye the trumpet. Blow ye the trumpet going into that cloudy and dark day. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in mine holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh cometh. For it is nigh at hand, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There hath not been even the like, neither shall be any more after it, even for the years of many generations. So when it says, in Ezekiel 34, when it says, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day, it is referring to judgment day, when fire is going to be upon this earth, when destruction is going to be upon this earth. The Most High is going to save who? The Israelites who are scattered to the four corners of the earth. Now, going back to Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 11. It says, and I will bring them out from the people and gather them from the countries and will bring them to their own land. And who's them? We're going to get to it because they go to their own land. And feed them upon the mountains of Israel. That's the land. By the rivers and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in a good pasture. And upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. He's bringing the Israelites back to their own land. This gospel, this ministry, the so-called Bible is for Israelites. It's not for all nations. It says, I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock. Yahushua came to save his people. Okay, we are Yahweh's flock. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith Yahweh thy power. Israel is going to rise again. But how? Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness does he does judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. Through Yahushua, when he brings vengeance and plagues upon this earth, when the four winds are let loose, when Yahushua visits this earth, he's coming to also deliver his people. So on that dark and cloudy day, when everything is in chaos, when Babylon is about to be destroyed, then Yahushua is going to deliver his people. But who are his people? The Israelites and none other nation. The so-called Negro Americans, so-called Native Americans, and such on. Now, an Israelite can look white, an Israelite can look Chinese, an Israelite can look African, okay? But they are still Israelites if they are a descendant from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If a Israelite man has a baby with a Chinese woman, that baby, even if it came out looking directly Chinese, that baby is not Chinese. It is still going to be an Israelite because according to scripture, we are what our father is. Abraham had Isaac and Jacob, okay? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob. Hence, they are all they are Israelites, okay? But not only that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob received the promise. And that's what makes them the Israelites. Ishmael didn't receive the promise, so he's not an Israelite. Esau did not receive the promise, so he is not an Israelite. Okay, we are the children of the promise from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to the 12 tribes of Israel. Those are the Israelites of the Bible. Those are the ones who rose to great power. Those are the ones who fell from the grace and glory of Yahweh. But they're the same ones who are being risen up again by Yahweh, who the world calls God, and by Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus. This ministry and this gospel is for Israel. And Israel will rise again. And Yahushua is going to gather us from the four corners of the earth where we've been scattered. We've been sold on the auction blocks and such on. Man, with that being said, I want to give all praise to Yahweh Shai. Shalom.